You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and to push our conversation this morning, let's take this background report by Oyeyemi Ajayi. We'll be right back.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's visit to Brazil is being described as a real game changer, an effort to deepen Nigeria's relationship with Latin America's largest economy and a key BRICS player. For many, this trip wasn't just another state visit. It's seen as part of a bigger push to diversify Nigeria's economy by building stronger global partnerships. The two-day state visit came at the invitation of President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Beyond the handshakes and photo sessions, the visit carries weighty prospects, opportunities to drive economic growth, open new trade channels, and unlock collaborations in areas that directly impact the lives of Nigerians. While in Brazil, President Tinubu reaffirmed his government's focus on driving development through technology, food, and innovation. He stressed that his administration is keen on reforms that lead to inclusive growth and lasting transformation, less talk and more action. The trip wasn't just all talk either. It produced 5 solid agreements covering aviation, agriculture, technology, and foreign affairs. Analysts say these deals could be the doorway for Nigeria to tap into Brazil's expertise in biofuel, while also strengthening knowledge exchange in science, education, and healthcare. One standout highlight is the new direct 7-hour flight linking Nigeria to Brazil. That connection isn't just about convenience, it's expected to boost trade and position Nigeria as a natural gateway for West Africans traveling to South America. So, what does all this really mean for Nigeria and Brazil? What other benefits can both countries harvest from this partnership? And how soon will Nigerians begin to feel the impact? Our guests already seated in the studio will be responding to these and more shortly.
Yeah, thank you very much, Oyeyemi Ajayi, for that extensive background report. And we already have our guest in the studio to discuss to review the visit of the president to Brazil. And in the studio right there, we have the Senior Special Assistant to the President on communication, on media and public communication, Mr. Sunday Dare. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
And also here, seated in the studio, is Dr. Martins Fakorede, a development expert. Thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure. Good morning and Happy New Month.
Happy New Month.
Okay, let's start our conversation with Mr. Sunday Dare. And our question would be, some observers have said that it's probably because of the tariff rolled out by the United States that is allowing for this global reshaping, of trade, amongst countries, and Nigeria trying to realign with Brazil again. What exactly informed this visit?
I think several factors. Okay. Several factors. And let's start from the tariff regime. We're in a world in which we've moved away from a rule-based global partnership to a tariff-imposed regime by the President of the United States. And what that means is that countries must begin to look inwards to other corporations, global corporations, continental corporations, that can help develop and accelerate their economies. But beyond that, recall that we have the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, propelled and supported by the United States of America. As we speak, this year is the final year. There's also that belief that it will not be renewed. So it's important for countries and presidents that are very proactive to start looking outwards to other global regional bodies that can best accelerate their growth and development. But beyond that, recall that more than 2 decades ago, the embrace between Nigeria and Brazil started, right from the period of President Obasanjo. Somehow along the line, it did not really take off. And then we had that process ignited again in 2019 under the late President Muhammadu Buhari. And that's when we had the first inking of the GIP, which is the $1.1 billion. I think that when you have a president who combines political experience, corporate experience, and global exposure, and a clear vision of what he wants for his country, I'm talking about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, then you expect to see what we've seen, not just with Brazil, but with China, with India, and other places. So for him, it was important to really embrace Brazil again. And the factors that really knock us together, they're huge. You can't ignore them. So you've seen a movement towards the South-South Global Alliance. You've seen the fact that Nigeria, the G20, which was hosted recently by the president of Brazil. You've seen the BRICS, where Nigeria is already a partner. So in just 1 year, you've seen the president go there 3 times. And that is propelled by fundamental reasons, which I'm sure down the road we're going to be able to speak to. But I think, let me say this very quickly. You look at Brazil, you look at Nigeria, a lot of similarities, a lot of potentials and opportunities. 218 million population. Here we have 225 million and still counting. You look at Brazil, vast agricultural lands, massive. Nigeria, vast agricultural lands. Look at Brazil. The cattle herd in Brazil is 238 million, more than the population. Nigeria, we're growing. We have a livestock ministry, very fundamental, unprecedented, set up by this same president. So he's walking the talk, as he's working, recalibrating the economy back home. He's aligning that recalibration with the global realities and seeking partners to work with us.
You said that this realignment is as a result of some fundamental factors. What are some of these fundamental factors?
Well, like I said, first, you did rightly say the tariff regime. Remember, Brazil alone is in the eye of that tariff regime, 50%, and for certain reasons. That's one. 2, you look at the fact that most countries, in terms of economic relationships and also diplomacy, you seek out partners who share certain similarities with your economy and with your people. For instance, Nigeria's cultural link with Brazil, the transatlantic slave trade, is extremely strong. You have between 5 to 8 million Nigerians in Brazil, in the Bahia region. But beyond that, countries also seek out. You look at petroleum in Nigeria. Remember, Petrobras was here before they went back. One of the biggest dividends of this shuttle diplomacy by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the fact that Petrobras is on its way back to Nigeria, and that holds a massive potential.
So when are we expecting it to actually
Well, the 2 presidents spoke to it.
Yeah.
They spoke to it directly.
Okay.
That means it's going to start very soon. Even before the state visit, that conversation has already started.
Okay.
But also, again, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is briefed on virtually all that's happening. And he understands clearly that AGOA is coming to an end. And it's important that we align with certain other bodies that will protect our interests. But let me also add what is important. We talked about G20, but we talked about BRICS. I think BRICS remains, I won't call it a challenge to the hegemony of the United States, but rather I will see it as a new South-South, global South cooperation, which had been there but lame. But now the global South has woken up. On the African continent, Nigeria has one of the largest economies. In South America today, in South America today, Brazil is actually the largest economy. So when you have these 2 partners together, they can leverage not only on their strengths, but also on their weaknesses. But again, the potentials for our country in this relationship is massive. Like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said at the press briefing, he said this country is in a moment of bold endeavors. Reforms at home, but also a new, robust, forward-looking and dynamic international relation, which is buoyed by economic interest that benefits us back at home.
All right. Thank you. You might.
Okay, let's bring in Dr. Martins into this conversation now. In your opinion, what is the most significant outcome of President Tinubu's visit to Brazil? He has gone there, this is the 3rd time. What is the difference between the 2 visits and this particular visit in the area of economic policies?
It is that Mr. President is actually walking the talk right now, because it's all been all talks, BRICS meetings and the conferences at the G20. They've been talking about it, but at this particular meeting, Mr. President and the team, the delegation, actually walk the talk to ensure that the various aspects of economies between Nigeria and Brazil, as enunciated by Chief Dari, has been put to practice, practicalizing, all the discussions earlier in the areas of agriculture. You cannot take mechanized agriculture away from Brazil. They are unique worldwide in every ramification. And Nigeria has, over 70% of arable land. So we need to learn from it. We need to appreciate Mr. President Bola Tinubu GCFR for having presented and delivered about 10,000 tractors right here on ground in Nigeria. They're oncoming. The first 2,000 has been delivered. And also about 25,000 farming implements, to boost agriculture in Nigeria. The Bank of Industry has been revitalized with about 1.5 trillion, and these are areas we're looking at in terms of agriculture, promoting food security in Nigeria. Other areas also, technology. Brazil also strong in South America in the area of technology. And our youth in Nigeria, over 70% of the demography of Nigeria's youth, are quite upbeat, intelligent, very strong, and are willing, capable, ready. They know it, the area of technology. So when Brazil's technology is brought to bear on Nigeria, our youth take advantage of that, and Nigeria shall be the better for it. Other aspects of development, is there to look at. How about the skills development? Because no development in itself can actually be sustainable without capacity building. So that is why we understand that on the sidelines of the conference in Brazil, there was discussion with Brazilian agency on skills development, the SENAI agency, and they are interested in training Nigerian trainers. When you train the trainers come back home and then build the capacity of Nigerians, both in the public sector, in the corporate sector, the upstarts, and of course entrepreneurs. So at the end of the day, our GDP shall rise, and the effect of subsidy removal that we're experiencing gradually and surely shall be ameliorated, and Nigeria's economy will improve.
So you're saying that the visit has sort of repositioned Nigeria as a serious player in the South-South cooperation?
Definitely. Okay. No doubt about it.
And you mentioned the youths.
Absolutely. He's actually on point. And I think the question of technology, Brazil has an agency for science and tech called Embrapa. Embrapa is quite popular because of its technological depth and reach. And at the meeting in Brazil, the Minister of Science and Tech, who is in charge of Embrapa, really talked about opening up the markets and the kind of collaboration they want to see with Nigeria. They talked about, there's a genetic revolution, which Brazil has been able to do so well with, which has boosted its agriculture. He said they're going to open up their markets and collaborate with Nigeria. There's also the aspect of pest control technology. And you know what pest does to vast agricultural production. They are experts in that area. They're opening up support and collaboration for us in that aspect. There's the Brazilian apple. They want to see that the Brazilian apple finds a market in Nigeria, but also we find a way of making sure that the seedlings are here and we can plant. So technology is important, and skills. You're talking about SENA. We saw a lot of meetings on the sidelines. We also saw the Brazil-Nigerian Forum, where we had over 7 ministers from Nigeria. The CBN governor participated actively. The coordinating minister of the economy was there. The minister of trade and investment, who really played a part. And we saw back-to-back panels, really drilling down on specifics. Agriculture was big, skills for our youth was big, technological transfer was big. But I think one of the biggest ticketed item, which I think we must talk about now, is the BASA arrangement. That is the open skies between Nigeria and Brazil. Unprecedented.
Yeah.
For that to happen, you need men on both sides who have vision, who have boldness, and who have clarity of mind about where they're taking their countries. You have President Bola Tinubu, who is bent on, following that critical path that will lead Nigeria to a destination that is desirable economically and also politically. So when you see the BASA arrangement with Air Peace, direct flight, when we traveled, we spent about 19 to 21 hours. And when we returned, I came on that maiden flight that returned. It took us just exactly 8 hours across the Atlantic. You've broken down barriers. You're spending, you're turning Nigeria into a hub. The potentials are
There's no transit. It's a direct flight.
It's a direct flight. And then Nigeria becomes a hub. If you want to go to Chile, Israel, and a couple of other countries, you come here. And then you have interlining when they get to Brazil. Air Peace and other airlines will work together. It's a new possibility. We've never seen that before, and there's a lot of excitement and expectations.
There is a lot of excitement and expectation and new possibilities. But most times when we have the president visit other countries for bilateral relations development and like this, the problem that we normally have is the follow through. That is the implementation. For instance, the president described his talks with President Lula da Silva as purposeful and action-driven. So what makes this visit different from the past international trips? How do you follow through? Because that has been the major challenge. It's not that in the past, maybe administrations that haven't been, something like all these bilateral agreements and development and all that. But the implementation, the follow-through has always been the problem.
Well, I think we're seeing a new tradition when it comes to this administration. And let me take off from China. When the president in the first year went to China, we saw how robust that engagement was. But we also saw that upon return, the president received the report, and barely 2 months after his return, what happened? He appointed someone, an experienced technocrat from the private sector, Mr. Tegbe, to the China desk to be fully in charge. Because you look at the massive engagements we have with China, road construction, hospitals, railways. It's just, so you see that tradition on the part of the president, paying close attention and activating the levers of government necessary to move that on. That is going on. I would think by extension, the entire Asian region will be coordinated through that desk. Now, you look at Brazil. As we speak, I know that there's a binational commission or committee that was set up. And what is the nature of that binational commission? What will happen is that you will have key ministers manning the key ministries, about 5 or 6 of them, based on the MOU. And then you also have private sector leaders in those key sectors, agriculture, aviation, come together to be part of the binational commission. If it happens on the part of Nigeria, the same thing happens on the part of Brazil. And their work is to track the agreements and the MOU and report back on a constant basis. I think that is a process that I know President Bola Tinubu is already considering, and that's what has happened in the past when you had such meetings and with countries and engagement. The binational commission comes in as a committee. They serve as, they track the problems, they track the progresses, they report to post-presidents, and things move quickly. So under this precedent, we're seeing a departure from there, a total departure.
A total departure?
Yeah, from what happened in the past, that this we tore. No, this is not going to tore. We're going to stay on top of it every step of the way.
Okay, so 5 MOUs were signed. 5 MOUs were signed. So how can this now translate, into real economic opportunities for the ordinary Nigerian?
So there's a translation. The first translation is the BASA agreement activated, and then we've had the first maiden flight. As we speak, I think from November, there will be 3 flights from Lagos to Brazil. Already, that is activated. You can say that, right? And then you look at the possibilities in terms of trade and investment, in terms of tourism, cultural exchange, in terms of turning Nigeria into a hub, for airlines, in terms of the interlining opportunities that comes. That's one. 2, the GIP already has taking off, the $1.1 billion. The Brazilian team was here several months. In March this year, they signed a couple of other agreements, which is a follow-up, from what happened in 2019, 6 years down the road. It took a President Bola Tinubu to get that activated because he clearly understood the importance of that. But tied to that is the fact that you're looking at the 10,000 tractors have come. We're looking at 100,000 tractors in that deal that's coming. We're looking at about 50,000 farming implements. We're looking at job creation, direct job creation of about 5 million and indirect job creation. So that support is going. Then you look at livestock. The livestock minister was also in Brazil. We have a livestock ministry. The partnerships are already going on at that level. You see, sometimes there's an immediate stage, which we want to call the short term, and then there's the long term. I think that the takeoff matters. It's just like a flight, an aircraft. If your takeoff isn't right, your flight won't be smooth. And I think that right now, under President Bola Tinubu, I haven't pressed that button. We've seen the takeoff, not just in aviation. We've seen the takeoff in technological transfer because of the meetings that held. We had all the heads of agencies there, SMID and Naseni. They were there. They were at work. The president actually gave them a mandate to make sure you get this started. So the takeoff is nice. And with the Binational Commission, we have a tracking system, and the impacts will come by and by.
Okay, tell us some of these long-term and short-term agreements which you talked about, because before I go to Dr. Fakorede, because I want him to speak on how all these agreements will actually spark the kind of transformation that we so desire in this country. But Mr. Dari.
Well, I think what I was saying that time is that for all agreements or MOUs, when it comes to its implementation, you should expect that it's going to take time. There will be timelines, there will be deliverables, and some of those deliverables will come in the short term. And some, so it's inherent in every agreement and every memorandum of understanding. And I've tried to point out some of the gains we're seeing even from the BASA agreement. When it comes to farming, that also is dependent on the farming season. That's also dependent on the fact that that meeting in Brazil, those meetings had to hold to get it started. So generally, the skills we're talking about, we know that Smidan, Naseni will start very soon. In a few months, we'll start to see that partnership grow.
Okay, Dr. Fakorede, let's look at the potential economic benefits now and what we are likely going to derive from the agreements signed with Brazil, particularly in terms of trade, investment, and technology transfer. How do you think will spark, all these agreements will spark the transformation that we so desire in this country?
We so desire this agreement, and the content for it to be put to practice is really has been a major concern in the past. But currently, you look at the person at the helm of affairs and the team being put together. It has to do with the seriousness of purpose of Mr. President currently. So as development experts, colleagues and I, we have every confidence that in every aspect of the agreement signed, be it in the area of agriculture, the BASA agreement of aviation, the skills development arrangement, and the GIP, which is Green Initiative, that will actually, propel Nigeria economically. Let's take the agriculture, the area of development in the nomadic challenges we have in Nigeria. We're talking about the so-called herders and farmers clashes, which have been so terrible, barbaric, and has criminal content in it. You find people moving cattle from wherever down south looking for water, which they have every right to, because every living organism desires to survive. So our cattle need to get water and drink. But along the line, you find incursions onto the farms of people, and those farms ought not to be disturbed, as the case may be. So impatience became the order of the day, and we begin to see clashes. The immediate past administration suggested the Ruga, policy, and Ruga is just another name for ranching. in Brazil, in Argentina, in South Carolina, in Texas, the world over, where they have cattle as one of their mainstay, local agriculture, you find ranching, being the policy, practical, on ground, whereas you warehouse these cattle in a specific environment, provide the water they will take within, and then make sure that you fatten those cattle. And when they now, when you milk them, what comes out of them, protein, comes of good quality. The meat, that is the beef, export too. You have a mini factory that exports beef from that. So it becomes a mini factory in areas. But then the naysayers, took to their heels, and even had to say a lot of things in the media, social media and all that. So the then government had to step it down, listening to those people. But currently, Mr. President, when we had a challenge recently, about 2-3 months ago in Benue State, visited on ground and commiserated with the people of the TV land in Benue State. He suggested two counsel to His Excellency Governor Alia of Benue State. One, cooperate with your colleague, Governor of Nasarawa State. Let there be that interstate cooperation in the area of security.
Okay.
We don't war with jaw. We come to the round table and discuss and find strategic ways to ameliorate our challenges, especially when insecurity is repeatedly being daunting, in the state. The second counsel is give me land and let me, my government, establish ranch for these cattle and the breeders. Again, naysayers the following day went to some of our national headlines, say, oh, they want to grab our lands, they want to do this. And you find out that most people saying this are not actually indigents of Benue State. It's so unfortunate. But the current administration we have under Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, is resolute, determined, and forward-looking. All those things will be done. By the time the agreement in the area of agriculture comes to fall with Brazil, we'll see ranches being established in particularly north-central states to forestall the unnecessary movement of cattle from north to south, disturbing farmlands, and then impatience on the part of others too. Okay. So all those things will be brought to bear. The Green Initiative Agreement, $1.1 billion, 6 years running, has been left there, KIV, kept in view. But the seriousness of purpose of Mr. President brought it out, dust it up, and then it has become a reality. Over $10 billion expected from that and ongoing. For the aviation, the BASA arrangement, over $10 billion expected. Initially, the aviation minister said that from $10 billion about 10 years ago, it plummeted to about $2 billion. You can imagine that. That's not too good for our economy. But now we are recalibrating Nigeria's economy. So it will get up to $10 billion in not too distant future, and more expectedly. So for development on ground, we're sure that with skills our youth will be empowered. With skills our public service sector will also be calibrated in terms of knowledge update for them to deliver based on policies of government that carrying them out. And entrepreneurs also, will be given, various knowledge so that they can make more money, more profiting in businesses. So definitely on ground, we're expecting that the GDP of Nigeria will eventually grow the more with all the indices we're looking at economically.
Yeah, the GDP will grow the more because, but the most important thing is for all this to trickle down, to the ordinary Nigerians so that it is not only the multinational, that are benefiting from all these agreements.
Because you're looking at value chain development. Very often the value chain is not fully developed or totally ignored. If you look at what we have in terms of the agricultural arrangements under the GIP, mechanized agriculture, Brazil has over 3 million smallholds that they've helped to just increase their agricultural potential alongside the mechanization that has taken place. So there's an inbuilt value development when it comes to livestock, when it comes to other products. Brazil, of course, produces sugar, they produce coffee, soya beans, and we're great in these areas too. And we're borrowing from their technology where they have become world producers. You did mention something that's critical. We moved from a 10 billion naira trade surplus with net with Brazil. It plummeted to less than 2
billion. Yeah.
The two presidents have committed to say in the next 1 year or two, that will go up to 3.5, and over time, they will push it back to. And the question you want to interrogate is, why did it go down from $10 billion to as low as 2? It's because we basically walked away from the necessary partnerships. We walked away from the benefits of relating, leveraging on what we can get from Brazil. So when you have a president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has been able to realize this, but beyond just that realization, is taking bold steps to make sure that we get plugged in. And I think that's very important. I know you keep saying, when will it trickle down? Beyond the BASA, like I said, this will trickle down eventually. Our farmers will benefit. We'll have an increase in smallholds. We have the farming implements, mechanization. Mechanization has always been the bane of Nigeria's agriculture. And where is the best place to go? It's Brazil, because they've had that experience. Globally, they are recognized for their agricultural revolution. And we're not reinventing the wheel. We're saying, how did you succeed? What did you use to succeed? We're just doing exactly that. And that's what you get from leaders that have vision.
Okay. Jumai.
Yes, leaders that have vision. I like the fact that Dr. Martin said that the seriousness of purpose of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is coming to the fore now. Let's talk about something that is very important, one of the high points of the Brazil visit, and that's the Petrobras Brazil, oil giant that is set to return to Nigeria after 5 years. And I would like you to tell us what it means for Nigeria's energy sector, and also the reasons that Petrobras left Nigeria. Have they been resolved?
I think to a large extent, the fact that we have Petrobras right now on the table, Petrobras is being discussed. The two presidents, President Lula da Silva of Brazil and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria, have spoken very openly. And like the president said, look, why is Petrobras not back in Nigeria? Whatever the issues are, we'll resolve them. President Lula da Silva said the same thing. Whatever the issues are, whatever is outstanding, he believes they are resolved. But if there are any other issues outstanding, now the commitment of these two presidents, whatever the problems have been, certainly that's over with. You look at the issue of Petrobras, just like the NNPC, in charge of large oil reserves. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu spoke about our gas potentials, which is globally known. Petrobras comes in with their experience, their technology, their control of the market. And you look at NNPC too. So both NNPC and Petrobras can leverage when it comes to the technical aspects, but also when it comes to markets. Of course, they're all part of OPEC, but we also know the politics that play within. It's always good when you have a partner from the global south who is always at the table with you. As Nigeria supports Brazil, NNPC, we also have support coming from Petrobras.
Will it also be an opportunity for Nigerian engineers and oil experts to get jobs? Because we see...
Yeah, that's the technical aspect of it.
Yes,
So
the technical aspect.
changed.
Will Nigerians be fully involved in Petrobras coming back into this country?
Well,
will it be an opportunity for Nigerians to get jobs with Petrobras? Or are they coming with their expertise without the involvement of Nigerians?
No, I believe so. This relationship we're talking about is symbiotic.
Okay.
It's not submissive. That's one. The technical details of that return, I am not in that position because I know that the leaders in our oil industry will sit and work out the technical details. But you see, even from the industry and across the country, there's an excitement in seeing Petrobras come back. And I think that they will sit and work out the details of that.
Okay, Dr. Martins, how will, might this affect foreign investment confidence in Nigeria's extractive industry, which is huge?
It's quite huge. In the first instance, the idea of Petrobras and the industry, the oil and gas industry in itself. Our refineries, has now been reported that we are taking the NUPRC, that is the agencies had the responsibility for upstream and downstream regulation, they have reported recently that they are now seeing more oil, more petroleum being refined than the future, than the past. It is not as if we have not been refining in that capacity, but it's just because there has not been integrity of purpose. There has not been openness. A lot of, people, should I say, men, third, how do you call them now? Those who are non-state actors. Yes, they have been doing a lot behind the scene with that, enriching themselves with our common good. But currently, because of the openness and transparency of the current administration, the development industry has seen that is now being reported that for the first time in about a decade, Nigeria has met up with the OPEC quota and more gradually. So we are here. We come home to roast. Besides oil and gas, to which that would be beneficial to the industry. You know that oil in itself forms a large part of our earnings in Nigeria. More money for government, more deliverables of the dividends of democracy to the people of Nigeria. In the area of agriculture, by the time such thousands of tractors start rolling in our 774 local government areas, it has direct impact on our farmers and direct impact on our agricultural farming yields, which will gradually and surely bring down prices of agricultural commodities. We've seen currently that the price of bag of rice, 50 kg, has come down, and gradually so, from about 120,000 to 75,000, 65,000 naira, and it's coming down gradually, save for beans, save for gari, staples. So by the time all these agreements come, to bear, to fall, you will now see that Nigeria will come back to the glory days of affordability for everybody, and jobs will be created for our people. Technology for everybody who has a knack for it. Nigerians are ready. We are intelligent. We are about the most intelligent, naturally intelligent human beings created on earth. No set of other citizenry has our natural intelligence. My grandmother didn't go to school, but when I was in primary school, Lagos, she started selling charcoal in a little bowl. And by the time I got to primary 5 and 6, she started selling bags of charcoal and firewood. A gentleman will come from Ghana every month to, help her with that. And my grandfather also was in the railways, took the railway from Ido down to Ibadan, and was honored, as the case may be. So Nigerians, we are quite crassly intelligent.
Yeah,
and once the opportunities are there for us,
yes,
as President Tinubu has been given to us right now, we're sure that Nigeria will kick off again.
That's true. We want to remind our guests, our viewers, that the phone lines are open. You can send in your messages, your questions to the guests here in the studio if you want to know more about President Tinubu's visit to Brazil and the outcomes. We'll be expecting your text messages so that we can read it to our guests here in the studio.
Okay, Dr. Fakorede, Nigerians are ready. We are intelligent. We are hardworking. And the major problem has always been that of leadership. That is what people say. That the major problem has always been that of leadership. So how do we realign to achieve all this that you have, highlighted?
You see, leaders do not come from the oblivion. They come from the lead. Those who we vote for do not come from another clime. We are all from Nigeria. So it has to do with, the challenge has to do with the belief system of the entire citizenry. I've always said, and I'll keep saying, that two pivotal stands upon which Nigeria's sustainable development can be attained will be for us to orientate and keep reorientating and imbibing ourselves to put to practice integrity and patriotism. If we're integrous and do the things right, say the right thing and do the right thing, it shall be well with us. You cannot have good leadership from a bad people. Neither can you have bad leadership from good people. But currently, as we speak, a departure from the past is in the fall. The current set of Nigerian leaders are doing what they ought to do as leaders who have the love of the citizenry at heart. When Mr. President took over a little bit above 2 years ago, we knew the state of the economy of Nigeria. And he said to us subsidy on oil will be removed. But I understand that there will be pains. Without pains, there cannot be any gain. We're passing through the pains, and gradually the pains are easing. So let us understand as a people and have our eyes on the ball that these agreements, these practicality of the contents of such trade agreements. Let's take, for instance, the solid mineral deposit that we have. The ministry in charge has brought to bear, a factory and many more. Somewhere between Nasarawa, between Abuja, and Nasarawa, Waru, Wasa and Nasarawa State, over $20 billion investment. Majority of workers there, over 90%, are Nigerians. Besides those that are being paid salaries, we have who we call who are artisans, artisanal miners. That is those who, on their own accord, will say, these solid minerals are in my father's compound, so let me also mine them. The Ministry of Solid Mineral Deposit has put them together in an association, so that they can continue to do their work, being profiled without let, so that criminals will not come among them. When they make all these things, and eventually by 2026, January 1st, they start making over 50 million naira, then they are liable to be paying gradual tax, to government. So these are part of the many direct impact that the policies of government is having already on Nigerians. It's a renewed hope.
It is a renewed hope.
I like the fact that my colleague is saying implementation is key, and everything sort of stops in the center. Mr. Dari, how are the subnationals now keen into this vision of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? I'm sure some of them traveled with you to Brazil.
Yes, we had a number of governors. We had the governor of Niger State. We have the governor of Kaduna State.
The former governor.
The former governor, who spoke extensively. First, he came with his team and signed a skills development agreement for Kaduna State. But also, one of the greatest successes we've had when it comes to agriculture and when it comes to taming the insecurity in the country is from the Kaduna zone. When you look at the Birnin-Gwari stretch, which is a major grains area for the entire north and the country. Over time, because the insecurity has been tamed, we have evidence, interviews, eyewitness accounts. These farmers are now millionaires and billionaires. They are able to stay on their farms. They're able to produce and sell. So he was there in Brazil. The Niger State governor was also there in Brazil. The subnationals, like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has often repeated, they are critical to development. They help to cascade not just federal government policies and initiatives to the people, but they help to sustain them. No matter how brilliant a federal government policy is, by the nature of our structure as a federation, you need the subnationals. Then, once the subnationals are activated and they perform very well, it cascades down to the local governments. If the local governments function properly, it cascades down to the wards. And then you have the bottom up. And you see a president who has returned firmly to a bottom-up development. When 3 weeks ago, in a very surprising manner, he decided to really attend the NEC meeting, which is chaired by the vice president. It was because he had a powerful message to deliver. It was at that NEC meeting that he called on the subnationals. We need you to partner more. And he announced the Renewed Hope Ward Development Program.
Okay.
Yeah, which targets the wards, about 9,980 wards, saying that they should create 1,000, work with 1,000 entrepreneurs. That's a bottom-up development. And for me, I think that's going to be major when it comes to looking at the performance of the subnationals, but also empowering our people for the Renewed Hope agenda.
Okay, let's look at the diplomatic objective of this visit now. And talking about the significance of this realignment with Brazil in reshaping Nigeria's global image, especially in light of the U.S. trade tariff driving new partnership. What are the diplomatic advantage for Nigeria?
I think when you look at the MOU signed, for me as a student of international relations, in a long time I've not seen two countries come up to sign some kind of international relations agreement to improve diplomatic relations. Emphatically, that was one of the MOUs signed. And for me, that is significant. Okay. It also speaks to the fact that whatever has existed before was a bit superficial. Bringing out an MOU in that respect means that you want to really deepen, you want to drill down. Because oftentimes we operate diplomacy at the level of political exchange. It doesn't drill down into, the economic partnership, social, cultural. And, it also derives from the fact that between Nigeria and Brazil, quite a number of similarities. The cultural affinity is massive. The areas of potential and collaboration are quite many and diverse. It might interest you to know that Brazil's GDP is also at 3 point something, and trying to get up there. The same point we are at this point. It might also interest you that in 40 years, Brazil had not reviewed its tax system. And now they have a new tax regime that kicks in January 2027 or 2026 or thereabouts. Okay. 2027. Now, come back home. We have a new tax regime that kicks in
next year,
1st of January. So when you talk about diplomatic relations, what this trip has done and the MOUs, you've seen President Bola Ahmed Tinubu bring forth a model going forward for this country when it comes to diplomatic engagement, just beyond the niceties and the tea and coffees in the global boardrooms. Now, Nigeria will go there with a shopping list. We've got this. What do you have for us? And I think that's a model we must hold firm. Okay. It's come from, like I said, from the experience he's had, from the trips he's made, from also the urgency of the moment. That is, how do you leverage Nigeria's potentials in oil and gas, in agriculture, and a few other areas? How do we look for partners that share the same ideals, that have potentials, and we can move forward? And I think that's important for us.
Okay, that's very important. Now, let's bring in the role of the Nigerian institution and the private sector. How will they play the role they will play to ensure that agreements don't just remain on paper? Because government alone can't do it. We need the private sector to come into so that implementation is key, whether we like it or not. And that is the problem we have in Nigeria. So the Nigerian institutions and the private sector, the role they play will go a long way in ensuring that the MOU signed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Brazil will manifest.
It certainly will. We've talked about seriousness of purpose of Mr. President. And he's here. We're together in this environment.
I ask this because I believe a lot of private sector people went with the president on this trip.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So the same charge goes to the private sector. Okay. The manufacturers from Nigeria, MAN, and the NASIMA, they are the organized private sector in Nigeria, to institutions, and we speak to them to take advantage of the content of all these trade agreements. In the first instance, locally, if you have a factory in Nigeria and you want to recalibrate your industry, verifiably so, you can approach the Central Bank of Nigeria and access 1 billion naira, single-digit repayment. You understand? It's ongoing in country. Added to this effort of Mr. President, who is Nigeria's #1 ambassador to the world, especially in the area of foreign direct investment inflow into the country. So we want to encourage our manufacturers, our business people, to read the content of the agreement. They are available in the public space. Just click. And if you can't find it, go to the respective Ministry of Trade Investment. Go to the Trade Department of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Go to the Presidency, Essay on Trade. Come to Chief Dari. You will get all this content if you're serious and you're responsible. And you have, proven evidence that you're a true business person, especially in the industrial sector, manufacturing, which we dearly need to recalibrate and develop. So it has to do with you in person, as the manufacturer, as the industrialist, to be serious, just as Mr. President and his team are serious, to bring to bear the content of this agreement so that you can benefit from same.
And I think the idea of the binational commission or the committee that will have the private sector people in those key areas and also the ministers, the key ministers, in those key sectors.
This trip, did you go with some of the, our industrialists, people in the commercial? Are you collaborating with them?
Absolutely. From oil and gas, we had Dr. Adeshina of Sahara Energy. From aviation, apart from Air Peace, we also had the Calverton, but they was there, and a couple of others. We also had the NGX and the SEC. They were there. Quite a number of them were there, and because they were mostly also part of the high-level side meetings that held for those 2 days. In fact, some of them had arrived the country much earlier. I saw about 4 commissioners from Delta State, and I think was it on probably about a few days ago, Friday or Saturday, Delta State actually had a massive engagement in Brazil, trying to explore areas of partnership when it comes to the economy. That's just a state on its own. You had the Kaduna State governor there, you had the Niger State governor there, and I think that a couple of other governors will compare notes with these ones and see the reason. I think what's important and critical is that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, working with his friend, his comrade, and colleague, has been able to kind of break the ice and open up. Because when it comes to relationship, it's about the interconnectedness. Having a 21-hour trip turned to 7 or 8 hours is significant. The Open Skies Agreement is significant. It comes with certain visa benefits, but it also opens up export and import trade between both countries. It's a gateway, and it's important.
A massive one.
A very massive one.
We have a lot of entrepreneurs
let's have some of these comments.
Yes, that came in, yes.
Yes, this one is from Femi Ajibode. He says, President Tinubu is the God-sent leader to Nigeria at this time. The Lord will strengthen him and keep him for these great works he's doing. Please, sir, don't just be distracted. Remain focused, and we shall all get there. Okay, that's an encouragement. This one is from Umar Saliu. He's from Kogi State, Kogi Central. It's a good morning to you all. Ours is to pray for the progress of our country. The most problem of this country is fuel tanks. To our president, is it trying to put things in order? We pray for it. Okay, trying to solve is talking about solving the fuel situation in the country. So we pray for his long life and prosperity. Do you have some?
Yeah, I have some, and I have some from Arabica in Paul. He's writing in from Life Camp, Abuja. He said, the state visit by the president is worth the effort, especially the direct flight from Brazil to Nigeria. My own take is, how does Nigeria gain from bilateral agreement beyond the paperwork? And Audu said, good morning. Please, what is the government doing to bring down the cost of fertilizer and other farm inputs? Mr. Sunday.
Yeah, I think the first part of that question, we've dealt with it, going beyond the paperwork. We've been able to really break down what the impact will be in the short run and in the long run. And the fact that the value chain that is developed between both countries creates jobs, adds value to whatever we produce in this country. The second part of it, the cost of fertilizer. We know that two critical inputs for agricultural production. First is the fertilizer, but also the seeds. And part of the agreement we had when it comes to the agricultural sector is the genetic technology that will be transferred. The boom you see in agriculture in Brazil was made possible by that genetic revolution, to which Brazil right now holds the title, and that is already ongoing alongside the mechanization. When it comes to fertilizer, I know that under the 2025 budget, there's an approval already to increase, to triple the production of fertilizer. But beyond that, earlier this year, this president approved the free distribution of over 20 trucks of fertilizer for each state of the Federation for distribution. I believe that has been concluded and another phase has started. So the question of fertilizer efforts are ongoing, not just to bring down the price, but also to distribute free fertilizer to our farmers.
Free fertilizer to our
because of time, I would have wanted to I would have asked how the Brazilian media perceived the president's visit. But you'll answer that when we come back from this break. Okay. Maybe you can just answer the
well,
question.
you know, being a media person myself,
yes,
I think they were quite prepared because this president, even before that trip, had left an impression. There is the impression of the leader, of the president of a country. There's also the impression that the country makes in terms of cold statistics. Now, you have a clear mix that is working. You have a leader that is progressive in orientation, that is principled, that is experienced, alongside a country that has the right statistics. And the media there clearly understood that even for Brazil as a country, it's been a long time having such a big player from the African continent, perhaps the biggest player from the African continent. So they were ready. There was full coverage. Live, actually, everything was live coverage and live streamed, you know, by the Brazilian media. We also did the same thing. And when you read the reports, because it's Portuguese, you know, a couple of friends helped to interpret it. And for them, they're saying it's been a long time Brazil has seen this kind of thing. And that President Lula da Silva, being a progressive, he talked about the fact that he was jailed for several years. You remember that our president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, also went to jail during the democratic struggle. He talked about how his party is now the favorite party in the country. People are joining his party. We have the same thing. He talked about his belief in democratic principles. We know that our president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was forged in the crucible of democratic struggle. The Brazilian media did their homework, and they also they amplified the fact that not just for Nigeria alone, but that Brazil has found a new partner that they must hold on to.
Were you able to engage the media, the Brazilian media there to promote Nigeria's, image there?
Yes, at a personal level. And we did that principally through what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said. Of course, everything was in English. And we were able to give that to them to say, can you just translate that into the Portuguese language, which they did extensively. They did the same thing for us. Everything Lula da Silva said, they gave us copies of that. At the personal level, we met with some of the media and communications team of Lula da Silva, because we want to make sure that even information flows back and forth. We want to make sure that when there's a problem, we are alerted in a quick way so that they can be fixed. And I think that will be an ongoing partnership.
Okay, an ongoing partnership. I have one question that came in. He said, a response. He said, we need to explore the cultural potentials between Nigeria and Brazil. And I know that Professor Wole Soyinka
was there's a regatta coming, I think sometime in December or early last year. The transatlantic trade, they will come from that point in Brazil to Badagry, on the waters. And that's very strong. Our experience during the transatlantic slave trade, it's huge between Nigeria and Brazil. And that's why you have millions and millions of Nigeria and Brazil. So that cultural exchange will come alive.
I can talk about, the similarity in our culture, because I was born into that similarity in culture. With respect to my progenitors, part of those that actually came from the Americas to Brazil and then back to Nigeria, to Lagos Island. So we have the Brazilian quarters on Lagos Island. When we were growing up, Lagos and the island, and even left the island for Abuja and Surulere, we were being taught various, words, in Brazil. Like you want to get...
Your name should be Da Silva or something like that. Your name is Akon.
Yes, we'll get to that. Exactly. We'll get to that. The Caxton Martins, as the case may be, we're part of the Brazilian, in quarters. My grandfather, that was in the railways engineer, took the train as he would team through Ibadan. And then the Olubadan then said, okay, you, Yebo Lobi, Ifakoede, that is the Almighty God brought you here.
So, Mr. Sunday,
we're quiet in terms of relations in the cultural differences, cultural relations between Brazil and Nigeria, particularly where we hail from.
Yes, and we heard that Sunday Dari, Media and Public Communications Senior Special Assistant to the President, will be leaving us now. You have another engagement to go to. But thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your contribution in this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We'll take a break now. When we return, our conversation will continue.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And discussion is still on the, we are reviewing the visit of President Bola Tinubu to Brazil. And joining us via Zoom now is the Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security. That's we're talking about Senator Abdullahi. No, I'm talking about Sabi. Honorable Minister, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. I can see you are trying to look at what name to call me. Senator Ali Sabi.
We got, it's unusual for you to join via Zoom. We always have you in the studio today. So that's why I'm a bit confused. Is it the same Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture that I wanted to speak with this morning? So it's good to have you join us via Zoom. Good morning. So we're looking at the visit, we're reviewing the visit of the president to Brazil. And you were part of the team that visited. Can you give us an elaborate, maybe explanation or what went on concerning agricultural agreement signed between Nigeria and Brazil?
Thank you very much for having me. I think kudos goes to our President Bola Tinubu, for his vision and his courage. Obviously, definitely, I saw the former Minister of Sports leaving the studio. That's on the diary. We're all together. Obviously, it's tried to say that the connection between Nigeria and Brazil is one that is long overdue. And of course, we all know that there was such a connection before, but it got lost. And it takes vision and courage of leadership to bring back such kind of relationship. And I think President Bola Tinubu and his counterpart, Inacio Lula da Silva, have shown clearly that they want the two countries to, coalesce again. And while Brazil is the largest, economy in Latin America, of course, Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa. And if you look at the ocean is just the dividing line between the two countries. So I think it's a very great one. And for me, I'm privileged to be part of this great, team that was there with the president. And we had two discussions. We had the general discussions, which was led by the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. And of course, where we had interface between us and the Brazilian ministers. Here we looked at our interests, and our interest basically is how do we guarantee food security for Nigeria, which is the vision of President Bola Tinubu. And this aspect of food sovereignty here is talking about producing what we eat and eating what we produce. Now, in doing this, definitely we have a lot of lessons to learn from Brazil, a country that went from a food deficit nation to a surplus and now a world leader in many, aspects of food production. And so what we told them clearly is what we are doing at our own end, trying to work on the food security challenges that we are facing, and that one of the challenges we would like them to work together with us to support us is the aspect of our yield gap. You agree with me that if you look at our production, our farmers are trying. We have 73 million hectares. We are farming just about 34 million. But even in this 34 million, when you take the basic crops, you will see that our yield gap is something to be concerned about. I give you a typical example that Nigerians will resonate with. Cassava. Nigeria has been the world #1 producer of cassava over the past 3 decades. But even at that, if you look at the yield, the average yield is about 11,000, 11 tons per hectare. And it is possible for you to do 45. Some farmers are doing close to that now, like the Agbeyewas and the like. But on the average, the national average is about 11 tons per hectare. So what we saw with them is that they have a lot of technology and they are able to support their farmers to produce at maximum. while also reducing cost in production. So those are the aspects we have discussed. Earlier on, sometimes in June, I think during the meeting of Africa and Brazil, my colleague Senator Abubakar was in Brazil, and he signed an MOU with the Brazilian Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, together with the counterpart from Federal Ministry of Livestock. There is that MOU, and then there was also an addendum to the MOU that brought in the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, that is the Embrapa. And the miracle of Brazil's agricultural transformation was actually driven by Embrapa. And I think this is something that I'm aware of. When I was in service, we've had such kind of, work relationship with Embrapa, but it was cut short. This time around, we've learned one or two things, and we want to ensure that the arrangement we are going to make now, which already we've kickstarted in this particular visit, is to have something that is lasting, that is institutionally driven, and that will help us to raise the productivity of our farms, help our farmers to know how to organize themselves, and practice agriculture in a manner that it is a win-win for both farmers and for consumers. So this is what we have done. We had a bilateral meeting with the Federal Ministry of Agri and Livestock of Brazil, and we've already agreed we are setting up a committee in the next 2 weeks. That committee will be up and alive for us to agree on key priority areas that we begin this particular journey of very strong partnership, collaboration, and cooperation between the two countries. And I'm very optimistic that we have a lot to learn there, and we are more than ready because we have a president who is committed to what we are going to do and has given us all the go-ahead to do those things and everything that we know that will help us to increase our productivity in this country, ramping up production for major staples, and they in turn are also interested in some of these production activities that we are dealing with, because they are very huge in livestock, they are huge in livestock development, and they also are looking for livestock feed. For example, you take soybean, they will be interested in soybean, and many other crops. So I think the opportunities are there. Is for us to do the works, and I want to assure you that we are more than ready to do this work. We know what exactly we want, and let me also quickly add here that there are two other components that will be of interest. The issue of soil. Brazil conquered the Cerrados, which is the Guinea savanna of Brazil. They call it the Cerrados, and that is where you will see there was an article in the Times magazine, sometimes in 2010, that talks about miracle of the Cerrado. And all of this is thanks to the fact that they conquered the soil. And you remember that I told you in this same studio on several occasions that we are doing what we call the Farmer Soil Health Scheme. The idea behind this was actually to learn the lessons from the Brazil experience. Because like I said, I was in service earlier, and I knew exactly some of these paths that they have taken. And that was why, upon assumption as Minister of State, I definitely discussed this with my colleague, Senator Abubakar, and we agreed I'm going to drive the National Farmer Soil Health Scheme, which has gone at an advanced stage. And the idea is to allow farmers know exactly the nutrients, status of their farmlands. That way we'll be able to tell them exactly what kind of fertilizer they need and how they're going to apply this fertilizer, more or less preparing the ground for what we call precision agriculture. And I think it is precision agriculture that has helped Brazil to achieve that kind of thing. So we are having that, and they are going to help us to achieve more in terms of the lessons we are going to share together. Now, the other aspect is, how do we get our farmers to be organized? Brazil is using the cooperative movement. And that is why also you remember that I told you we are doing what we call the Renewed Hope Cooperative Reform and Revamp Program, because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had promised Nigerians in his manifesto that he's going to look at agricultural cooperatives as a vehicle for transforming food production. And we have done a lot of work on this, and any moment from now, a lot of these things will begin to be rolled out. We are looking at reviewing the law, which we have already done, and we are preparing, for final, work with the Ministry of Justice so that we can get an executive bill for that. We are also going to, introduce, cooperative bank to mobilize resources for Nigerian farmers in the manner that we have now learned Brazil is doing. And that is why for them, they have layers and layers of operation. Their farmers are very organized. And we are going to use this same cooperative reform and revamp program to organize farmers' cooperatives so that they will be able to help us to achieve our food production. The idea here is for you to know exactly who you are dealing with. The idea behind having people coming with portfolios and telling us they are farmers will be a thing of the past. And you remember we have reiterated this several times when we have interface on this platform, that we want to do away with ghost farmers. We want to deal with genuine farmers. And the only way you can do that is when you have a very strong organizational arrangement. And the cooperatives appear to be one very solid one that Brazil has used. And we are going to definitely, we're on course, and we are going to learn more from them and ensure that we achieve this particular objective. We are also going to train farmers
Honorable
under
Minister.
the same platform, and we are also going to learn from them how they did their own, what they call the more or less like the TVET. So we're going to enhance the training capacity, because if you don't have farmers that are knowledgeable and skilled, there is no way they can implement agronomic practices that are designed to give you maximum productivity. So we have to invest in Nigerian farmers.
Okay, Honorable Minister, I love your optimism when it comes to agriculture.
You know what happened with Jumai?
Yes. He wants to offload everything.
I triggered him. I asked him to give us an elaborate explanation. So he gave us an elaborate explanation.
You know, I love the fact that this administration is keen into the Brazil model of, agriculture, and there are practical steps, for Nigeria to replicate, that model here in Nigeria. But we all know that climate change has an adverse impact on Nigeria, and you said Brazil has sort of conquered the Savannah region. So how can Nigeria key into the climate smart agriculture that is being practiced in Brazil to help our farmers, do farming all year round and in a very, very conducive manner?
Now, before you answer that, Honorable Minister, let me just read out some of these comments so that you can take everything together. This one says, okay. Now, let me just quickly read out some of these comments and questions so that you can answer everything together, because our time is fast spent. It said, good morning, Nigeria. The masses, farmers especially, will enjoy the gains of President Bola Tinubu's economic engagement with developed countries only if his government is able to purge the politicians working with him of corruption with sincere use of anti-graft agencies like EFCC and ICPC. That's from Ison. Ison is from Abakaliki. Now this one is Magaji Bako Kala from FCT. He said the president is doing well, but kidnapping and banditry in some of the agricultural state is a problem that hasn't been dealt with. What's the government doing to restore peace to enable farmers to give us what to eat? Okay.
And yes, I have another one. He said on the Brazil visit, how does it translate to local production of tractors? I was part of tractor assembly in Nigeria in 1986 in Ibadan.
All right, thank you very much. I think quickly, let me just address one issue. On the security aspect, I think we should give kudos to President Bola Tinubu. A lot of gains are being made. And this idea behind people thinking nothing is happening is because they are not part of those communities. I'm from a state where this insecurity is a challenge. We have 76,000 square kilometers of land in Niger State. The Shiroro area, the Mariga area, the Borgu area are all affected. But I know as a matter of fact that a lot is being done on a daily basis. Work is ongoing and there is a lot of successes. So I think the president and his security team have changed strategy. They are working very hard and a lot is happening. Now, having said that, you also recall just recently, 2 of the notorious leaders of some of these sects were arrested and paraded before the media. So I think that shows that a lot is happening. And we should continue to encourage our security agencies on that. Now, on the aspect of corruption, let me be very clear. As far as agriculture is concerned, the corruption itself is within the production system. You look at what happened in Anko Borrowers. The bulk of the people who collected these things is a mix of Nigerians who claim they want to go and farm, and they took the money for other things. Today, in the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, if I show you the kind of letters coming, you will know that people are just intending to defraud the system. They will tell you they are farmers and they are not farmers. They will tell you they are this and they are not. All they want is for you to give approval for them to collect these items and take it to the market. That is what we are trying to stop. And I want to assure you that as part of the institutional framework, having, taken some departments out of the, out of the ministry, we are recalibrating. And as far as the issue of agricultural data is concerned, we are having now a Federal Department of Agricultural Data and Analytics. And as far as that department is concerned, we're going to use that department to reposition our data collection and identification of Nigerian farms as it is. That way we will know who we're dealing with. And that's why I told you the idea behind the cooperatives. In Brazil, they have cooperatives at all levels, and they are well registered. They know what they are doing. They deal with them, and they are trained. That way, there is a structure. So this framing we intend to do properly, and this is what we believe if we do, the benefit of this production system can come to Nigerians. The president is committed, and I'm telling you that we in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, myself and my colleague and brother, distinguished Senator Abubakar Kyari, we are more than committed to this work. We want to ensure that we take this opportunity to transform the system into one that Nigerians will have food that is affordable, while also guaranteeing that farmers can farm and make some profit. That is the balancing.
Honorable Minister, on that note, we've run out of time. We've run out of time completely. We have to let you go at this point. We thank you all so much for joining us on this program, even though late, but you've made a lot of contributions. If
we would like
yes,
1 hour.
You'll still be talking for the next 2 hours. Senator Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, Honorable Minister of State, Agriculture and Food Security. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
And back here in the studio, Dr. Martins Fokorede is still seated. In 30 seconds, how will this visit be remembered by Nigerians? In 30 seconds, yes.
When we stop being incurable pessimists, rather becoming incurable optimists. It is only not optimism, believing in the seriousness of purpose of such trips that Nigeria will benefit from all this.
I love the way you play with words. Thank you so much. Dr. Martins Fokorede, development expert. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for
and
your
happy
time.
new month again.
And on that note, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today, the first episode in the month of September. I am Juma Yusuf.
And I'm Ademolade. Glad to have you join us. Thank you. Have a lovely day.